Blog Talk Radio.
On this edition of Sports Drive Live, NBA free agency is suddenly heating up as the Knicks are in hot pursuit of a couple old friends. We'll also recap the All-Star game and put on the skates as the yes-boomer will try to care about hockey. All that and more coming up next. Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to Sports Drive Live on what is now officially Sunday, July 15th, 2012. I'm Brian Vanek alongside Gershon Rabinowitz, and we will be going a half hour here tonight discussing some breaking news on the Knicks, NBA and NHL free agency, and the MLB All-Star game. As always, remember this show is all about you, the listener, so call in and let us know what you think. 646-649-1921 is the number to do so, and let's get started.
And
Gershon, we're starting tonight's show a bit late tonight, and with good reason. We have some news that just broke on the Knickerbockers. And Gersh, why don't you let us know what is going on?
Breaking news from the Sports Drive Live news desk. According to Frank Isola from the Daily News, and a report from Ken Berger of CBSSports.com confirms that the Knicks have agreed to a trade that will send Dan Gazarich and Jared Jeffries to the Portland Trail Blazers for Raymond Felton and former Knick Kurt Thomas in a sign-in trade. Does this mean that Jeremy Lin will be rocketing to Houston?
You know, Gershon, I mean, that's a very possible, result here. Jeremy Lin, I mean, when we did our very first episode of Sports Drive Live, as we talked about before coming on here tonight, I was drinking the Kool-Aid for Jeremy Lin and insanity. Gersh wasn't, but I've now come to understand how pathetic this thing is. It only lasted 3 weeks. The Knicks didn't do anything with him. He got injured. Yeah, I can't believe how much money he's going to get from the Rockets when he already signed the offer sheet. It's whether he agrees to a deal or not. And I think this definitely means the end. I think the Knicks might actually have come to an understanding that he is not worth $25 million. And maybe he is marketing standpoint and from a fan standpoint, but Gershon, I think, acquiring Raymond Felton, he's probably going to be battling for that starting point guard position with I forgot
with
the other player.
With Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd will actually be battling with Raymond Felton for the starting point guard position. But remember that Jason Kidd was signed to be the backup point guard. So that also signals the end for Mike Bibby in New York. But does this signal the end for Jeremy Lin? Remember that the Houston Rockets have not formally submitted the offer sheet for Lin's services. But they did up the offer that they will submit to the Knicks, $14.5 million guaranteed in the final year, and that's the dagger for the Knicks because they already committed money to Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony at max contracts. So the question for the Knicks will be, how far will they go above the luxury tax threshold in the NBA? Remember that in the NBA you have a soft cap. It's not a hard cap, so you could go over it. But will the Knicks do that to retain Lin's services? And remember, and just like you said, remember that it was only a 3-week span what Jeremy Lin did in the middle of February for the Knicks. Would you want to base your entire team's fortunes for the next 3 or 4 years, because that's what the window of opportunity usually is for a championship team in the NBA, based on 3 weeks in the middle of February against sub-500 teams for Jeremy Lin?
I mean, I think that's perfect. I mean, it's a great point, and it's so true, and it's really insane that the Rockets are willing to spend so much money on him, and it's insane the Knicks are actually trying to keep him. And I really think this deal that just kind of happened, getting Felton and the other guys coming in, I really think this signals that the Knicks, I don't know if they're out of it, but I think they're getting point guard insurance and point guard help just in case they can't keep Jeremy Lin. And this deal is not completed yet, either the sign and trade, but it's likely to happen. And, there's just a countless of other deals that's happened since we were last on here. Ray Allen to the Heat, Joe Johnson to the Nets, Deron Williams re-signing with the Nets. And Gershon, what's your take on those trio of interesting deals?
Well, the NBA is going through a massive change. Everybody's changing addresses. Everybody's moving on to different places. And one last point to mention about Raymond Felton, he knows the Knicks system. He was in it back in the 2010-2011 season, played a great first half for Mike D'Antoni's team, and then was traded in the Anthony deal. The Knicks know what they're going to get, and that's one of the reasons why they are set to acquire him if this trade goes through, which as of right now and as of this radio show, it is not official. Steve Nash is the big fish going. He's going to the Los Angeles Lakers, decided to sign as a free agent there, or I'm sorry, in a trade with the Lakers. So Steve Nash is coming to Los Angeles, and he's going to replace Ramon Sessions and Derek Fisher. Derek Fisher was traded in midseason last year. Ramon Sessions finished the season as a starting point guard in Los Angeles. And it's great to have a facilitator like Steve Nash to work with Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, Metta World Peace, and Andrew Bynum, among the others. Plus, you're not putting Steve Blake, who into a point guard position when he's more of a shooting guard, a good perimeter shooter, good guy coming off the bench. So even though Nash is 38 years of age, you know what he could do on the offensive end. This guy's won back-to-back MVPs. If he give you half of that production, or even 70% of that production, that may lead to a championship contending team out in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, it's crazy to think that Steve Nash is going to be playing a Lakers uniform, because it's like it's as if David Ortiz put on the Yankee pinstripes, which has been a possibility in the last couple of years. But it's like seeing a rival join. I guess the saying really goes: if you can't beat them, join them. And I mean, that same can be said for Ray Allen joining the Heat. Of course, you know, he's not necessarily going to have as big a part of the team as Steve Nash will for the Lakers. But that's also an interesting move. And the big three for the Boston Celtics has been broken up. Of course, the big three in Miami is completely different, and completely different type of players. But, you know, a lot of changes going on. Jason Terry, I think, as you said, going to the Celtics. It really has been an incredible change, and it's going to be really interesting to see this coming winter now with the new CBA and no worry of lockout. If, you know, a full season of the NBA, I think it's going to be really exciting with all these new deals. And remember, the biggest chip hasn't even moved yet. We don't know if he will yet, but also Dwight Howard. I heard earlier today that the Lakers are actually in on him right now as well. And all those other teams that have been negotiating with the Magic, kind of in shadow teams, you know, Los Angeles has always been in on Dwight Howard. And by the time we have our next show, he could possibly be putting on the Laker gold and purple as well.
I don't know what to believe with Dwight Howard, because every day you hear another team in the mix. Originally you heard about the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn backed out. Remember, they signed Brook Lopez to a max contract after the Magic were basically dragging their feet making this trade. The Dallas Mavericks were in on Dwight Howard, but then today they signed Chris Kaman, the former Los Angeles Clipper, to a contract. So it's still unknown where Howard could end up. There's always been talk with the Lakers trading Andrew Bynum. But remember, Howard has to sign an extension no matter where he goes. If you're the Lakers, do you want to trade a franchise player in Andrew Bynum for what perhaps would amount to 1 year of Dwight Howard? That's a huge question mark. And as far as some of the trades of some of the shooting guards moving around in the Eastern Conference, Joe Johnson for the Brooklyn Nets, I think that's a terrific move now to pair with Darren Williams, who was just re-signed, because Joe Johnson is an excellent perimeter shooter and gives the Nets their best shooting guard option since Vince Carter departed a couple of years back. So having him in the backcourt and having his leadership and his ability as one of the top 5 scorers in the NBA consistently year in and year out really is going to help and change that offense for the Brooklyn Nets. Now, as far as Ray Allen going to the Miami Heat, Ray Allen, solid perimeter shooter. Imagine him coming off the bench. You got Mike Miller, another perimeter guy. It's going to be bombs away. And they also have Norris Cole. They have Joel Anthony off the bench. This Miami team, the world champion Miami Heat, have just got stronger. Jason Terry now moving from the Dallas Mavericks to the Boston Celtics, getting some fresher legs, replacing Ray Allen. Perfect spot for him. He is only a couple of years younger than Allen, also a good perimeter shooter, good leader. And it's really going to be exciting and interesting to see where all these pieces fall. Some of them already have, and it feels like the hot stove in baseball almost. You're also seeing it in other sports as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and as you said, although the NBA free agency period is insane, so is the NHL. And Gershon, if you could tell us who will be putting on a different pair of skates come this winter, that'll make me maybe care a little bit more about hockey.
Well, they are going to be going wild in Minnesota. And remember that place is a place for hockey. All up in those frozen ponds. The Minnesota Wild have been around since 2000, and now they get 2 of the biggest fishes in the pool of NHL free agents. Zach Parise, who just played for the Eastern Conference champion New Jersey Devils, has signed a 13-year deal to join his hometown team, the Minnesota Wild, along with Ryan Suter, the defenseman from the Nashville Predators, signing on the same day on July 4th a 13-year contract with Minnesota. And what that does is, for Zach Parise, 27 years old, it guarantees that he'll finish his entire career, or the remainder of it, with the Minnesota Wild. They'll be able to build there. They have a terrific goaltender in Nicholas Backstrom, who's been an all-star. And you add Ryan Suter to that defense, and it's just going to make the team stronger and more dynamic. And they really haven't had that much to really cheer about in Minnesota. Remember, a couple of years ago, they lost Marion Gaborik to the Rangers, so this is almost like revenge for them in that situation. P.A. Parento, a former New York Islander, is moving on to the Colorado Avalanche. You also have Jaromir Jagr, who played 1 year with the Philadelphia Flyers, former Ranger, moving on to the Dallas Stars. Ray Whitney will join him in Dallas, signing a 2-year contract. And one big move that has not been made, but could be made potentially, is the longtime Phoenix Coyotes captain and the last original Winnipeg Jet, Shane Doan, could find a new address. Now, an unnamed team in the Eastern Conference has offered him a 4-year, $30 million contract as of Friday. Will he leave a team, an organization that all he's known for his entire career, which spans till about 1994-95, to go to this unnamed team just for one chance at the Stanley Cup? Remember, he was pretty close to winning one this year, only a couple of games short against the Los Angeles Kings. And it just gets really exciting, and it gets really intense at this point in the free agent season and in the off season. And if there is no hockey, that would be a huge letdown and a huge disappointment, as they're trying to green out a new CBA. So hopefully there will be a season in the NHL, and it's something that I can't wait for. And there was something that I couldn't wait for all week last week, but it kind of disappointed me, and that was the Major League Baseball All-Star Game.
Yeah, Gershon, that smash hit, smash mouth, signifies the transition into our analysis of the All-Star Game in Kansas City. And my expert opinion on it was Troy was a stinker for the American League, losing 8-0 to the National League at their own home park. It was just horrible, and Gershon was one of the bigger All-Star games I've actually anticipated, as you said, and it was horrible. And I mean, I wasn't there to watch it, but I heard about it through my phone and the updates, and I just can't believe what happened.
And especially if you're a fan of the American League, and it sounds like you are, of course, being a Yankee fan. And the misery, if you're a Yankee fan, actually began the day before. Now, congratulations to Prince Fielder on winning the Home Run Derby, the State Farm Home Run Derby, as he was picked by the captain, Robinson Cano. And the Kansas City fans were relentlessly booing Robinson Cano for not selecting Billy Butler to the Home Run Derby team in the American League. And I got to ask you, Brian, who do you take off from that American League roster that's representing the Home Run Derby? You have Prince Fielder, Jose Bautista, who's been leading baseball in home runs ever since 2010, Mark Trumbo, who continues to hit Trumbomb after Trumbomb, as they keep calling it down in SoCal. Who do you take off of that list? I mean, you can't blame Robinson Cano for not going with the hometown guy when the hometown guy should have been selected for the All-Star game to play in it. I know Butler was, but I mean a guy like Mike Moustakas or Alcides Escobar.
I mean, Gershon, you can't take anyone off. I mean, it was really insane. I mean, even from a non-biased standpoint, I honestly, some people don't like it. I like the fact that the Home Run Derby is now picked by the players now picked by captains, because that makes it a lot more exciting. In recent years, we saw players who weren't up there in the home run totals, who weren't superstars. This allows, like Cano and Kemp, they get it. They know who we want to see in the Home Run Derby. And this American League team this year with Trumbo, Fielder, Bautista, and Cano, I mean, who can argue? Those are four of arguably the best power hitters in the American League. You can argue for a couple more guys. But Billy Butler, I mean, no offense to him, he's not one of the bigger power hitters. And also, I mean, you be happy, Kansas City, that you got your own All-Star game. That was something that's been in the works for many years, and they finally got it. And they weren't happy about it because of the Home Run Derby. I mean, that's pathetic. And honestly, I mean, you have more things to be concerned about and be booing down in Kansas City.
Well, their misery was mollified the next day as a former Kansas City Royal, Melky Cabrera, ended up winning the MVP of the All-Star Game. An 8-0 win by the National League. That's the first time they shut out the American League since 1996 as Veterans Stadium when Mike Piazza was the MVP. And that's the third consecutive All-Star win for the National League. National League getting 5 runs off Justin Verlander in the first inning. That was the most surprising aspect. And also a curious choice for the starters of the All-Star Game being Justin Verlander and Matt Cain and not R.A. Dickey and Jared Weaver.
Yeah, I mean, that game, and as I said, I wasn't able to watch it because I was away on a camping trip with my friends. But I mean, it's amazing to think that, you know, Justin Verlander gets a nod for the start, and he allows 5 runs in the first inning. That was unbelievable to hear. You know, Melky Cabrera, though, I mean, good for him, though. I mean, the Yankees are looking dumber and dumber by the day.
So are the Royals, because, I mean, the Royals gave him up for Jonathan Sanchez, and Sanchez has not produced anything for them.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable, the fact that Melky Cabrera is now the superstar and the MVP. And, you know, I could honestly rant for you know, hours of how the All-Star Game was messed up and how it shouldn't decide home field advantage. And the unfortunate thing is, if you're an American League fan, I don't want to say that the chances for the World Series is over, but you have to look at the statistics, and over like 75% of teams in the last 40 years that had home field advantage won the World Series.
Including last year with the St. Louis Cardinals, winning Game 6 and Game 7 on their home field, including that dramatic Game 6 where David Freese sent everybody tomorrow night, and that was the day that the Cardinals won the World Series. But you can't decide home field advantage based on one glorified exhibition game if you're going to have the fans vote the starters in. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's just asinine. You don't do that. I mean, it should be based on the better record during the regular season, division winner, wild card winner, and just go from there. Every other sport does it. Why can't it be done in Major League Baseball?
And you're trying to remember how angry we were last week in our show. I mean, exactly. It's amazing how MLB hasn't realized it, and Bud Selig hasn't woke up and smelled the coffee. That's what needs to be done to make the fairer All-Star Game and have some sort of an excuse for having a decided home field advantage. And you look at the game, it is treated like an exhibition game. It's treated like a spring training game. The starters for the American League, for both leagues, are out of the game by the second, third inning, and then you're just continually swapping players in and out, getting a different pitcher every other inning or every inning. How is that the game that decides home field advantage? How does that signify what league is better and what league deserves home field advantage? So what if the Yankees win 105 games this year, and let's say the Dodgers make the World Series and they win 92 games? The Yankees have to start on the road. That's just not right.
Well, it's not right because the Dodgers were 13 games worse than the Yankees in your scenario. But also, it just doesn't make any sense because you're just basing it off of one game. Just like we talked about and we ranted on this show before about how we don't like that 5th wild card spot, that 5th seed in the playoffs, that it's based on one game. Because I think Major League Baseball is just doing this to get interest back into the All-Star Game because we actually approached the 10-year anniversary of that 7-7 tie back in Milwaukee where the only guys that were left were Vicente Padilla and Freddie Garcia for the American League and National League. On the mound, there was no players left, and Bud Selig had a PR nightmare on his hands, and he had to come up with something, and this was a solution.
I mean, I can't believe this is a solution. You know, it's unbelievable. And until this is fixed, until this is changed for the better, every All-Star Game, no matter the outcome, is still going to be a pathetic outcome, and it's going to be, I mean, unrightfully so, the decider of the World Series, essentially. I mean, I'm not saying there's no chance for the American League to win the World Series, but numbers normally do not lie, and it's unfortunate that this is the game that basically decides the Fall Classic, as I said.
And one more question before we get off this subject and we move on to our first half review and predictions and everything. Do you think that the National League has surpassed the American League in terms of talent on the pitching side? Because you're seeing a pipeline of all these pitchers getting traded either from the American League to the National League and the prospects that come up. Guys like Steven Strasburg and Matt Cain with San Francisco Giants. And We also saw guys like Gio Gonzalez going from the American League to the National League. Do you think that the National League has surpassed the American League in terms of pitching talent, and is it evidenced by the shutout in this All-Star game?
I don't think you can base it on one game, but I think that's a definite yes to that question.
But could you base it on the fact that we mentioned like last week about 5 or 6 other deserving candidates not making the All-Star game in the National League as far as those pitchers, guys like Greinke and guys like Johnny Cueto, who were left off the roster, plus a guy like Chris Capuano, because there was just so much depth pitching-wise, and you had to get everybody represented. Could that also be evidence?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's just overall, that's true. I mean, the National League has always been about pitching, more 2-0 games and 10-0 games. But it's clear as day to me that the National League has better talent pitching-wise. That doesn't mean it's a better league. I mean, I guess if you talk about the All-Star game, they are in the last 3 years. But what I'm trying to say is that I honestly think that there is better pitching talent, and I think a lot of these big lineups in the American League could be stopped potentially in a fall classic by this great amount of pitching. I mean, not even on
the last 2 years. Happened with the Giants and the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We've seen that, and the Rangers, who had that ferocious lineup, who everyone thought would just pummel the Cardinals, they got stopped by Chris Carpenter, Kyle Loesch, Jaime Garcia. In a matter of seconds, the Rangers lineup, was made look like nothing. Same 2010, and a lot of the other years, it's true. And the National League, the American League team is going to have a tough time defeating the National League because every single pennant contender really has fierce and scary rotations.
And as we take a break from this all-star argument, let's take a look at baseball at the break. Predictions, surprises, disappointments, anything that's on your mind, because we're halfway there and we're almost at the postseason.
Yeah, Gershon, and it's unbelievable. It really is that halfway of the year is basically gone. And I mean, there's been a lot of breakout players. There's been a lot of memorable moments already, and I mean, Josh Hamilton. I mean, he would probably be the MVP. I'd say, the American League at least. R.A. How about him for the National League Cy Young? I mean, that's just incredible. Didn't pitch too well today, and Gershon will have some more on that later on in the show. But it's just been an incredible first half, and I mean, if the first half is the basis on anything, we're in for a really exciting second half of the year, and who knows how it's going to end, just like last season.
And don't forget about the 2 rookies coming up, Bryce Harper and Mike Trout. Nobody really expected them to come into the big leagues this early and provide the impact that they have. I mean, that's pretty incredible in itself. And how about the no-hitters and the perfect games that we've had in baseball this year? That's just been amazing. Guys like Philip Humber, who would be one of the least likeliest of pitchers, no offense to him, to pitch a perfect game. And we had Jared Weaver pitch a no-hitter this year, and Johan Santana getting the first Mets no-hitter. And speaking of the Mets, surprise teams, the Mets, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Baltimore Orioles, the Los Angeles Dodgers. It just goes on and on and on. The White Sox for Robin Ventura. So many surprises, so much to look forward to in the second half of this baseball season. It's just unbelievable what we've been seeing this season.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't even stress. I mean, like you said, those teams were somehow in the thick of every single race in Major League Baseball. Teams that no one saw, doing anything this year. Who saw the Orioles rising up through the division that quickly? Some picked them to be contenders, but to be towards the top of the division at this point. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they're hanging in there just like they did last season. We'll see if they'll be able to keep up everything they've done so far. I mean, the White Sox, I don't know if you said their name yet, but I mean,
did. I mentioned about Robin Ventura.
Yeah, and with all the changes they made over the off season, who would have thought Adam Dunn would resurface? He's still striking out a lot, but he's producing a lot of runs as well. I mean, go through any single division, you'll see teams with records you never thought they'd have, and in a good way, and even in a bad way with the Philadelphia Phillies. But,
and let's talk about some disappointments. Because we mentioned about the Philadelphia Phillies, the Tigers, everybody thought that they might have another run in them. They've battled so many injuries. The Boston Red Sox, as of play right now, are tied for last place with the Toronto Blue Jays in the American League East. I mean, that's pretty surprising in itself. And just some of the stories that you've seen in baseball, just in this first half of teams that you thought were going to make a run and ended up not. I mean, we made some odd predictions, both of us, going into it. We thought Miami would be better than they would be. We thought about the Phillies also.
You said the Rockies would be top of the division.
Yeah, nobody had the Pittsburgh Pirates going to lead the National League Central. I mean, it's just been one of those seasons, and it's just been such a rocky season with some of these teams. And I want to actually talk about guys that I think right now my predictions for the second half as far as awards. I would say the Cy Young Award in the American League should go to Jared Weaver. It's close with Chris Sale, but Jared Weaver is not on an innings limit. Chris Sale is going to probably be shut down because he's also on a strict innings limit like Steven Strasburg. And I remember you picked Strasburg to win your National League Cy Young Award, but he's going to be shut down, Strasburg, after 160 innings. Sale's going to have a similar limit because he was in the bullpen last year as the closer for the White Sox. So just because of that, Jared Weaver, I say, should win the Cy Young Award. 10-1 going into play. Just ERA under 2 has been terrific in the National League. R.A. Dickey. Who else could it be? He's been terrific with the knuckleball. If he could sustain it, then he should be the Cy Young Award. And Rookies of the Year, Harper and Mike Trout. I would say that the American League MVP should be Josh Hamilton. Mike Trout might even get some votes for that. And the last time a rookie won and the MVP was Ichiro back in 2001 with the Seattle Mariners. And I say in the National League, Carlos Beltran should be the MVP for the St. Louis Cardinals. Nobody thought that he'd be able to equal the production of Albert Pujols after he departed to the Angels.
Those are great picks, and, I mean, I have to agree with most of them. I think the American League MVP, I think Trout really has a chance, and you said that as well. I think if Hamilton keeps it up, I mean, there's a good chance he'll probably win that. But, I could see Trout getting considerable votes. I could see Cano being in the mix, how hot he's in the last couple of weeks. For the National League MVP, I have to look at Andrew McCutchen potentially for the Pirates. If they end up getting in the playoffs, he could receive a lot of attention, a lot of votes. I don't know how popular a pick for the Pittsburgh Pirates would be, but you also have other guys like Mike Stanton. He's having a great year. I mean, there's just a lot of names. I think Beltran would probably be the favorite right now, but I wouldn't count out a good handful of other players as well.
I wouldn't count out Andrew McCutchen. He's had a fantastic season for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and it's just like John Sterling would say, as he says on the Yankee radio broadcast, you can't predict baseball. Baseball is just a funny game, and we're going to be debuting a new segment here on Sports Drive Live called You Can't Predict Baseball. And today you mentioned about Brian, about R.A. Dickey struggling against the Atlanta Braves. He had a second straight start, going 5 innings with 5 earned runs given up. Dickey's line, after starting 3 straight games against Atlanta this year, he has 1 loss, ERA of 8.80 against them. Against everybody else, a 1.81 ERA. His ERA at Turner Field is 12.54. That's after that ERA went down today, and he was still in line for the win until, and okay, this belongs on You Can't Predict Baseball, and that's the site that we get it on, is YouCan'tPredictBaseball.com. The Mets bullpen blowing it. Haha, that's what you say when you're a Yankee fan, I guess. But just so many different ones on this site. And here's one other I'm going to say. The Pirates heading into the break, winners of 10 of their last 12. They easily won an A.J. Burnett-Tim Lincecum matchup. Even weirder, that's totally predictable this year. Lincecum 3-10, Burnett 10-2 this year. Timmy 6.42 ERA, the worst in baseball. Half as many runs, more than any other pitcher in the National League as far as ERAs. Allowed 69 earned runs in the first half. That's already his second highest season total for an entire season in his career, according to Jason Tark of ESPN. Meanwhile, Burnett, 3.68 ERAs, allowed 2 earned runs, and 11 of his 15 starts, 2 earned runs or fewer.
And I have 2 quick ones, and these are going to be shockers to everyone. Adam Dunn hit a single yesterday, and Mike Napoli stole a base. And that'll be it so far here tonight for Sports Drive Live. Alongside Gershon, I'm Brian Zanuck. Signing off for tonight, and we'll talk to you all very, very soon.